Hello and welcome to another edition of the Rider Rumblings podcast. This is episode 182 with Taylor Shire and Darrell Davis, and we're talking about the Saskatchewan Roughriders, who are now officially in first place with 2 games to go. They can't relinquish that at this point in the season, so that leads to some interesting conversations now. What do they do going forward? We'll get into that, but let's go back a little bit and talk about the Toronto Argonauts losing to the Riders 27-19 on Friday. Not a convincing win by any means, but they got the job done. 1-0, as they say every week, and they found a way to win in the end.
Was that really the Toronto Argonauts?
Yeah.
Wow, they're missing so many
Not last
players.
year's Argonauts, yeah.
Yeah, really, they're sure not last year's. The reigning Grey Cup champions have fallen on a tough spell, right? And Jarrett Daigie's their quarterback, who hasn't been able to start anywhere else. Ryan Dinwiddie's the head coach might be turning him into a usable quarterback, but it's not the same as playing the real Argonauts. Wittenmark McManus is gone. Their linebacker, their great receivers are gone. Darius Daniels and Coxie are missing. That's just didn't look like the Argonauts. So, we were talking beforehand, Taylor, we thought they're just going to cruise over this one. And the Riders, we thought were going to breeze by it. Took them a little longer than we thought, right? And there were some anxious moments near the end of the game. But a big interception by A.J. Allen, a big knockdown by Marcus Sayles in the end zone, I think, really saved the Roughriders. It wasn't a convincing victory, but a victory is a victory.
Yeah, I think going into the game, many people, knowing the lineups are different, knowing that Jarrett Daigie threw 4 interceptions last week in relief and Nick Arbuckle was going to come into Saskatchewan. I thought many people, not necessarily myself, because I always know how this team plays when they have a lesser opponent, but many people were expecting this dominant performance, put the pedal down, let's clinch first place in the first half and let the second half figure itself out. But it's not like they played down to their opponents. That would be not a fair way to assess it, but it just seems like there's no urgency necessarily right now because they had 3 chances to clinch first place. It's not this ultra meaningful must-win game, and that'll be interesting to see what happens now this week in Winnipeg when they haven't had that urgency really since I think since the Labor Day Banjo Bowl rematch when it was like, okay, this emotional must-win type of thing, and that followed right a game against Hamilton, a game against Calgary, which we had all that buzz surrounding. But these last few weeks have kind of been not meaningless necessarily, but certainly less emotional.
Yeah, around Labor Day, they told us that one of their goals was to sweep the Labor Day Classic in the Banjo Bowl, and they did that. So they were quite elated, and it seemed like that was what they were really peaking for. And then there have been some ups and downs since then. They haven't been a dominant team. They're leading the league in with the best record, so they are the league's best team. But you sometimes wonder how they play, why they play. Do they let up? Do they get a little lax at times? And maybe there are a few things that they have to worry about. Those are things that coaches like to say, you know what? See, we got to get better at that. So they do have things to tidy up and improve upon. So I think that might be good for them. What are they going to do in the next couple of weeks? Well, that's going to be interesting to watch to see how they go because clinching first place and then trying to get healthy, and setting yourselves up for the playoffs and being at your best might be a little tough with 2 games that don't matter that much.
Yeah, I always find it interesting to see if a team is, and there's a lot of West Division teams right now that are going to be fighting hard in these last 2 weeks for not only a playoff spot, but seeding and whatnot. So where are they going to finish? They're going to be any one of those teams, right? They're going to be riding a hot streak into that West semifinal. Maybe 2 teams are going to be riding a hot streak into that West semifinal. Whoever wins that is obviously going to be even more hot coming to Mosaic to face a Riders team that, will have essentially 3 weeks off. It depends how they roll out the starters, but 2 sort of meaningless games in the standings, the first round bye. So then you're going to have a team that's been somewhat resting, I guess, still. So can they all of a sudden turn it on and face a team that's maybe beat up a little bit, but riding some momentum? I always find that interesting this time of the year.
Yeah, a lot of people in sports say, you know what, momentum doesn't carry from game to game, right? You've got momentum in a game quite often. It doesn't carry over from a game to a different game. So I think the Roughriders are going to try to prove that it doesn't really matter, that they're hot now, that they're a good team. They can take it easy a little bit, rest those guys, get healthy. They need a lot of, especially their defensive backfield. They really need those guys to come back at full health. They're missing basically 3 starters and a 4th starter is limping. So there's a spot of concern, and they're going to need those guys all healthy. and then come back and just you're right. The teams that are in the playoffs, that are in the semifinal, and are right now are still wrestling for places. They're going to be keen and ready to go, and the Rough Riders might have to get that edge back. But I think they're capable of it. You know, I know that they've gone through some lapse periods, especially after bye weeks. It seems like that they're not that sharp, but I think they're ready for it. I think this team is built to be the team that can play at its best in the playoffs. That's what they've talked about all season, and I think that's what I believe they're capable of doing.
Yeah, I think the game plan, they'll have no problem with that. Whoever it comes in, they'll be game planning for a few different opponents. But just that emotional spark, playing at home is going to help. I think there'll be a lot of build up to it. So if they can find that emotional spark, and I think they have the belief, like you said, I think they believe that they can be the team to go into the Grey Cup, potentially win the Grey Cup. But are they a scary team? Would the West semifinal winner come into here and not be fearful, but be on their heels a little bit based on how the Riders are playing heading into the playoffs? Anytime a team plays at Mosaic Stadium, it's a tough place to play. But are they facing a scary team? I don't know.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. They might be facing scary weather. I was at the Edmonton Wildcats Regina Thunder game on Sunday, and oh my goodness, if they get wet, I was just amazed that players were able to even do anything. They looked a lot happier on the Thunder sidelines than they did on the Edmonton sidelines. I tell you, they weren't very happy being there, losing 56-3 to a team that was clinching first place. If any Western team has to come in here and play that's going to be difficult, and that gives the Rough Riders that home field advantage. Just being there, you feel a little bit of warmth if the fans are on your side. I think that might help a bit. I remember, I can't remember, was it 1988? Sorry to go back that far, but we were writing all week about the domed, warm weather BC Lions coming through wintry Saskatchewan, and they won't be able to play. And I think Matt Dunnigan was the quarterback, and they blew out the Rough Riders. So, you know, these are pro football teams. Whoever's got the better game plan, whoever's got the best roster at the time, that's the team that'll win. So the weather, everything else is irrelevant, just who's playing well. And I'm a believer that momentum does continue to build, but some people will argue that, and I think the Rough Riders are still the team to beat. Are they scary? Scary enough, yeah. If you come through this season with a 12-4, and even if they lose their last two, 14-4 record, that's pretty impressive, and they deserve to be on top there. So I think that other teams might be a little bit intimidated, not terrified, but they would be. The Riders are a scary enough team to go past the West Final.
Well, we have 3 weeks from now, I guess, to set up that West Final. So we'll do that more in the future podcasts. Let's go back a little bit and talk about the Toronto game. I do want to highlight Sam Emilus' catch in the fourth quarter, going over top of Delonte Hood, I believe it was, the Argos DB, and made a Moss catch. And it was featured on NFL Countdown. Lots of highlight reels, obviously, playing it. But Emilus, I think, coming back from injury, that's a good guy to have this time of the year, and that catch sort of highlighted it. Yeah,
him and Keon Schaefer-Baker, they've waited most of the season to get those two starting Canadians back. And the job they've done filling in with Tommy Neal and Dill Duncan Busby, been amazing. Really pretty impressive, the receiving core they have, especially the Canadians. So, yeah, getting Sam Emilus back can certainly be a game breaker. So can Keon Schaefer-Baker. You know, he's been bothered by injuries a little bit and slowed, but he made a good catch, too, in the game. So having those two back and healthy can really help them in terms of roster movement. The scary thing that happened in the Toronto game, though, they're already missing Dante Myers, and their other 1,000-yard receiver, Keyshawn Johnson, got hit in the knee by an Argo tackler. So he left the game, and it didn't look good. So we're early in the week as we're recording this, Taylor, but so we may find out that it was a serious injury. Hopefully it wasn't, but they will probably need to rest Keyshawn Johnson. But not having your 2,000-yard guys available, that could be really tough on the Rough Riders.
Yeah, that would be easy decisions to sit. Keyshawn, Dante, there's a couple other guys, even Milligan. Sit them for a few weeks. Maybe let them, I don't even know if you want to play them against BC or maybe a little bit against BC if they're healthy. But you have 3 weeks to get those guys healthy, a few more guys. So let some of the backups play. Let some of the second string, third string guys even play. Give them a chance, right? And that gives you a time to rest. And then when it comes to Emilus and Schaefer-Baker, I imagine they're going to want to play because they haven't played the full season, so they probably want to get more reps under their belt. So it sets up a lot of interesting. And Trevor Harris, that to me is one of the biggest questions. He said he's going to fight Corey Mace. Jokingly.
I got a kick out of that. I know that feeling because I asked him about resting. Remember in the glare he gave me in the media scrum that day, and now he's making light of it, and he's going to fight his head coach because Taylor he sure doesn't want. Trevor Harris doesn't want to be taken out of any football game, which is a good sign, I guess. But I think they're going to have to, aren't they? I love that line.
Yeah, I'll fight him. He just with a straight face too. That to me is one of the biggest questions. But then also, if you think about like this time of the year, there's probably a lot of bonuses and incentives that people will need to hit. If AJ Ouellette gets a bonus in his contract for being the CFL's leading rusher, how can they take him out of the lineup? Mm-hmm. Unless they pay him his bonus and say, go rest, and here's your bonus for what you would have got for being the CFL's leading rusher, because he's up there.
That's interesting. I wonder if that's allowed. That's an interesting point, right?
And so if AJ has a few thousand bucks on the line to be the leading rusher, he's not going to come out of the lineup.
No, you're right. Nor would he want to, and he'd be really ticked off if he lost that opportunity. He's had a tremendous season, man. He gets such tough yards when they pitch to him around the end. Like he'll make yards through the middle, no doubt. But when he gets out around the end and the way he's able to find little seams and cut back, that's the thing he's talked to you and I about all season is how much quicker he feels making those second and third moves. It's really impressive. He's really tough to stop when he gets out around the end. I was wondering why they didn't use him. They used him in Ottawa as a short yardage quarterback because Tommy Stevens is out. Didn't do that at all, I don't think. Maybe once. No, I don't think they did it at all. They used Jack Cohn as their short yardage quarterback against Toronto, which I'm wondering why. Jack Cohn doesn't seem to be a short yardage quarterback. He did not make the first down marker in the fourth quarter. I still can't believe the God Center gave them that ruling. What a horrible call that was. But Ouellette's really become a huge factor, and you're right, to take him out is going to be a tough thing, but he gets battered. He plays such a physical game that I think it would be really nice to rest him, but boy, you probably would lose that argument if you say, listen, you got to sit. Well, why can't I lead the league in rushing? I'm ready to play, and you know that he really wants to play. But those are tough things to do sometimes, and I don't envy the job of the coaches right now as they decide what they're going to do down the stretch.
Yeah, I think for Ouellette, not handling short yardage, I'm going to say that would be like, let's not let him take more hits than he needs to. Right. I think that's why Jack Cohn was in there. I think if they really needed a yard and a game down to 1 yard, I believe AJ Ouellette would have been in there.
Yeah. They have all those options now that hopefully we don't know how badly hurt Tommy Stevens is, right? Yeah. He's unstoppable, it seems like, as a short yardage quarterback. He thrives on that. But AJ Ouellette's almost unstoppable too. So they have the options. They've done that all season. So when the team tries, the opposing defense tries to stop one or keys up to stop Ouellette, and all of a sudden they put Tommy Stevens in, or they put Stevens and Ouellette in the same backfield. There's a lot of different options that this team has, and to their credit, that's what they were supposed to do all season, is build up their arsenal of plays, and they've done that pretty well. What do you think about the discussion? A lot of people are saying that the Riders have played pretty vanilla defense just to save them some things for the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't call it vanilla. I would call it shorthanded. They've been without a few key players, and so that to me is more of a personnel versus a game planning thing. They had a couple of new players, right? Benny Sapp is still relatively new. Redwine got his first start. So I wouldn't necessarily call it vanilla. I would call it shorthanded. But also I was going to talk about the game plan versus Winnipeg and BC, maybe more offensively. But what do you want to show these two teams in these next 2 weeks? If you have your starters in, if you have your backups in, what does the play calling look like? Because one of those teams could be coming here November 8th.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You don't want to tip your hand at all against either of those teams because those are two of the leading contenders. You're right to be here in the West Final. Well, I guess Winnipeg's got a tougher road, but if I were to think right now, I would think that the BC Lions are the team to be here on November the 8th. That can change. Of course it can, but you don't want to tip your hand completely. If they're starting Jake Mayer or they're, using some backups, I think they're going to use their basic offense and defense, I would guess, because you can't try all those things if you're using that you would be using if you had Trevor Harris behind center. So I think it'll be very dull's a bad word. I never want to use dull because games are always exciting in some extent, but I think they would be toning down their play calling just to the basics that everybody has seen before. They're certainly not in this stage of the game going to introduce during a game new plays that somebody else can see on film and prepare for. They might have some of those stashed in the background, and they might use them on closed practice days, but they're not going to use those plays during the final 2 regular season games.
Yeah, and especially if you are going to run backups, run what you know and run what you have been already working, and don't introduce anything new. Don't have to install a bunch of new plays when you are playing a meaningless game standings-wise. And if you have backups in, I think that would be a good game plan because, you don't want to give BC anything to off film to then prep in that last week of the season heading in if they potentially come here in the West Final. But it sets up, again, an interesting conversation with the play callers in terms of how much they do want to give away.
Yep. And, that's always the strategy. What do you want to do? It's like preseason, right? Oh, exactly. We were very bland. We just we didn't want to show them anything new. And you try them, and as the season progresses, you keep adding plays into your repertoire, and that's what they've done. And they seem. It seems like there's always a couple that are still left in their quiver, right? That they can use in the playoffs that they haven't run, or maybe they only ran them once during the season. And something that you say, you know what, this was a pretty effective play. Let's stockpile that one, put it on reserve, and we'll get it out when we need it. And come playoff time, that's when you usually need those interesting new plays. And you go, wow, the defense wasn't ready for that at all. Or the vice versa. The offense didn't know that blitz was coming. So, I think you got to play pretty conservatively these last 2 games.
Yeah. So I mentioned MLS had, I believe, one of the plays of the game. I think A.J. Allen, you mentioned it, that interception. It was sort of like subdued because he had made the pick, was excited, then they had an initial call for roughing the passer on Baldonado. They pulled that flag because it clearly wasn't a headshot. And then A.J. Allen was then excited again. But I said earlier this year, I think it was at the midway point, where Tavon Campbell was this team's most outstanding Canadian. But after Campbell has been out of the lineup, in my opinion, A.J. Allen has been over the course of the season has been the best Canadian since he's been in the lineup more and he's made more plays. Yeah,
he probably is, right? Logan Ferland's outstanding too, and you could certainly give him consideration, but he might be the offensive lineman of the year too. So, do you want to vote for him for a double winner, and that gives him a better chance to win the offensive line category too? So there's some voting thoughts in there, but A.J. Allen, who stepped in when Avery got hurt, and we were thinking, is he ready? They thought he was ready, and he certainly has been. Like 2 interceptions the last 2 games. Nobody looks at him as a weakness. Nobody tries to exploit him on opposing offenses. You're right. He's had a very good season and would be in my mind, absolutely the outstanding Canadian for the Roughriders, and maybe in the West too. To take a look around and see how he does. And Dembski's always up there, but he's hurt. So, there's some other guys who might, if I started thinking about a few, there might be some, but A.J. Allen is certainly worthy of the top Canadian award for the Roughriders, and maybe even beyond that, right, in the West and maybe for the league.
Yeah, I would say offensive players get more love when it comes to those. So if there was a most outstanding and defensive Canadian, I would say A.J. Allen would get that. Who knows about the offensive guys?
Add another award. Okay.
Add another award. And Brett Lauther, I think, deserves a bit of credit for going 5 for 5. No conference, right? That was kind of a weird
what was with that?
into the game.
I know that Corey Mace says going into Pill Country that the wind's tough, but man, Toronto kicked a 41-yard field goal into the wind, so they're just messing with us or something. And it's good to practice your 2-point convert all the time anyway. But
or maybe it was that, or maybe it was because the Argos scored 1 point, and so the Riders wanted to go up by 7, so they tried the 2-point convert. I don't know if at that point in the game, I don't think you really start counting points.
But it's still weird that they didn't even try a convert. I would be fine if they were a 2-point convert team all the time. Even if you're making 51% of your 2-pointers over the course of a season, you're going to make more convert points than you would if you just consistently kick the 1 yard or kick the 32-yard convert. But Brett Lauther looked like the old Brett Lauther. He's the guy. This is the guy who made 82% of his field goals through his career. You and I golf a lot, and when you've got the swing going, it feels great to hit the golf ball, right? And every kicker I've ever spoken with says that there's a similarity, right? You get that rhythm going, and you just feel it. And it looked like he had it. Maybe it's a new holder, maybe it's who knows what it is, but he had that confident look. You wrote about his confidence, and he had the confident look and the feel and the rhythm that we expected from him all season. How he got it back in a week off, I even debated the fact, was he hurt? Maybe he was hurt, maybe he wasn't hurt, maybe they were stashing him. But whatever has happened, it looks like he's back, And I don't see any reason. There's a discussion whether they should put the American kicker in to try him, but I don't think there's any reason to do that now. They need to keep Brett Lothar on, unless he's worn out and tired, does have a sore back. But otherwise, keep him going and keep that rhythm going, because when you get the golf swing, you get the kick and swing, just keep that rhythm going and don't change anything.
Yeah, he'll want to have some confidence heading into the playoffs, but they've signed an American kicker. They've released Campbell Fair. So do you try this American kicker and give him a few reps, knowing that Brett's feeling good? But yeah, that's, again, like the quarterback is such an interesting dilemma of how you want to be feeling heading into the playoffs. So we'll have a few more weeks to discuss, like I said, the West Final, but should be an interesting game on Friday night when the Riders go to Winnipeg. I'm not sure what to expect, and we'll see how the week plays out.
Yeah, they don't owe the Winnipeg Blue Bombers anything. They don't have to send their best players. It can be like a preseason game for them. Teams, I know Winnipeg's scrambling for the playoffs, which is weird to think that Winnipeg hasn't locked up something already. And then Winnipeg could be the team headed east, right? So the Rough Riders might not even see them until they could possibly meet in the Grey Cup. I don't know. Who knows what might happen through the playoffs? But they're going to be trying their hardest. And if the Rough Riders send their second stringers and give them a battle, it's going to be interesting down the stretch. But I don't expect them to have a full complement of starting players in the Rough Riders lineup to play in Winnipeg, where you could risk getting hurt and really hurt your chances down the playoff stretch. So yeah, I think it's going to be Winnipeg Blue Bombers A team against the Saskatchewan Roughriders B team.
Well, we'll see how this week goes. The Riders will travel to Winnipeg Friday, and then in a few weeks, I guess a month from then, hopefully make a return trip back to Winnipeg. At least they hope anyway, for the Grey Cup. So we'll talk about that and much more next week in the podcast. Darrell, thanks as always for joining, and enjoy the game. We'll see.
Hey, thanks. We'll see you at practice.